Helena Blackwood stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, watching the city sprawl beneath her like a living blueprint. At 38, she was one of the most respected architects in the city, known for designing buildings that didn't just reach for the sky but seemed to dance with it. Her latest project, a sustainable housing complex for low-income families, had just won a national award. Yet today, success tasted like ash in her mouth. The text message on her phone glowed like a neon accusation. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Darling. Same hotel, room 412. C." It wasn't meant for her. It was meant for her husband of 12 years, Jonathan Blackwood, real estate mogul and apparently master of deception. The message had arrived on his phone during breakfast that morning while he was in the shower. Helena had glanced at it innocently, expecting a business message. Instead, she found evidence of a betrayal that cut deeper than any architectural blueprint she'd ever drawn. Jonathan entered her office now, his silver hair perfectly styled, his charcoal suit impeccable. He moved with the confidence of a man who owned half the skyline she was staring at. At 45, he was still devastatingly handsome, with the kind of presence that commanded boardrooms and charity galas alike. "Helena, darling," he said, his voice warm with false affection. "Ready for dinner? Mother's expecting us at 7. She turned slowly, studying the face she'd loved for over a decade. The strong jawline, the piercing blue eyes, the mouth that had once whispered promises of forever. Now she saw only a stranger wearing her husband's face. "Who is she?" Helena's voice was steady, professional, the same tone she used when discussing structural integrity with contractors. Jonathan's smile faltered for just a moment. "Who is who?" "Cassandra." She held up his phone. "You left this on the breakfast table." The color drained from his face, but he recovered quickly. Jonathan Blackwood didn't build an empire by crumbling under pressure. "Helena, it's not what you think. Room 412 at the Meridian Hotel, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months. I called them, Jonathan. They know you by name." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd once found endearing. Now it looked calculated, rehearsed. "It's complicated." "No, it's actually quite simple." Helena moved to her desk, her movements precise and controlled. "You're having an affair. You've been lying to me, to your mother, to everyone who matters in your life. Helena, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been sneaking around like a teenager? That while I've been working 18-hour days designing homes for families, you've been destroying ours?" Jonathan's facade finally cracked. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I'm seeing someone, but can you blame me? When's the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about your projects or my business? When's the last time you looked at me like you used to?" Helena felt something cold settle in her chest. "So this is my fault?" "We grew apart, Helena. We became strangers living in the same house, going through the motions. Cassandra makes me feel alive again." Cassandra. Helena tested the name, finding it bitter on her tongue. "Who is she?" "She's an interior designer. I met her at the Morrison project. She's young, vibrant, passionate about life. Unlike your boring wife who saves children's lives through architecture and boring charity work." Jonathan had the grace to look ashamed. "That's not what I meant." "No, but it's what you feel." Helena walked to the window again, her reflection ghost-like against the city lights. "Does your mother know?" "Of course not." Helena almost smiled. Victoria Blackwood, the family matriarch, ruled the Blackwood Empire with an iron fist wrapped in Chanel. She'd built the real estate dynasty from nothing after her husband's death, turning grief into gold. Victoria had chosen Helena personally, declaring her perfect breeding stock for future Blackwoods with typical bluntness. The older woman had never had children of her own besides Jonathan, adopting him after marrying his father. Her approval had been harder won than Jonathan's love. "You're going to tell her Helena said. Helena, be reasonable. There's no need to destroy the family over this. You already destroyed the family, Jonathan. I'm just acknowledging the damage. She turned to face him one last time, memorizing the man who'd promised her forever and delivered betrayal instead. I'll file the papers tomorrow. I want you out of the penthouse by the end of the week. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. Unlike some people, I don't make promises I don't intend to keep. As Jonathan left her office, shoulders slumped. In defeat, Helena remained at the window. Somewhere out there, a woman named Cassandra was preparing for what she probably thought was her greatest victory. She had no idea that the game was just beginning, and Helena Blackwood had never lost. A battle that truly mattered. The golden cage was finally open. Time to see who could really fly. Cassandra Vale stood before her full-length mirror, adjusting the emerald silk dress that hugged her curves like liquid fire. At 28, she possessed the kind of beauty that stopped traffic and started wars. Platinum blonde hair that cascaded in perfect waves, emerald eyes that sparkled with ambition, and a smile that had toppled more powerful men than Jonathan Blackwood. Her penthouse apartment, paid for by her generous benefactor, gleamed with designer furniture and fresh orchids. Every piece had been carefully selected to project success, sophistication, and most importantly, that she was worth the investment. Tonight's dinner at the Blackwood estate would be her coronation as the new queen of the dynasty. You've got this, Cass, she whispered to her reflection, applying one final coat of crimson lipstick. Helena's out. You're in. Simple transition. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Mother's expecting us at 7. Dress appropriately. This is important. Cassandra smiled. Everything about Jonathan Blackwood was important. His money, his status, his connections, and most crucially, his mother's approval. Victoria Blackwood controlled the family fortune with the precision of a Swiss banker and the ruthlessness of a mob boss. Win over the matriarch, and Cassandra would have access to a lifestyle most people only dreamed about. She'd done her research meticulously. Victoria Blackwood appreciated directness, despised weakness, and valued results over sentiment. The woman had built an empire from ashes after her husband's death, turning a small construction company into a real estate dynasty worth billions. She'd handpicked Helena as Jonathan's wife, seeing her architectural brilliance and social grace as perfect assets for the family brand. But Helena was yesterday's news. Boring, predictable Helena with her charity work and sensible shoes. Cassandra represented something far more valuable: youth, vitality, and a hunger for success that matched Victoria's own. The drive to the Blackwood estate took her through the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city. When the wrought iron gates came into view, Cassandra felt her pulse quicken. The mansion rose before her like something from a fairy tale, all Gothic spires and manicured gardens. This would be her castle soon enough. Jonathan met her at the front door, looking nervous in a way that was both endearing and slightly concerning. Remember what we discussed, he murmured, kissing her cheek. Mother values honesty and strength. Don't try to be someone you're not. Darling, I'm exactly who I need to be, Cassandra replied, squeezing his arm with calculated affection. The interior of the mansion was even more magnificent than she'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors, and priceless artwork adorned walls that whispered of old money and older secrets. This was power made manifest, and soon it would all be hers. Victoria Blackwood waited in the drawing room, and Cassandra understood immediately why this woman commanded such respect and fear. In her mid-60s, Victoria possessed the kind of regal bearing that came from a lifetime of making difficult decisions and living with their consequences. Her silver hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and her navy dress was clearly couture. But it was her eyes, sharp, calculating, and completely unforgiving, that made Cassandra's confidence waver for the first time. "Mother," Jonathan said, his voice slightly strained, "I'd like you to meet Cassandra Vale." Cassandra stepped forward with her most dazzling smile. "Mrs. Blackwood, it's such an honor to finally meet you. Jonathan speaks of you constantly." Victoria's handshake was firm, her gaze penetrating. "Miss Vale, interior designer, I'm told." "Yes, ma'am. I specialize in luxury residential spaces. Actually, I've been studying the design elements of your home. It's absolutely magnificent. The way you've balanced classical architecture with modern functionality is inspired." "Flattery?" Victoria's eyebrow arched slightly. "How refreshing. Most people simply stare at the price tags." Cassandra laughed, a sound she'd practiced to be both genuine and charming. "I prefer to appreciate craftsmanship over cost, though I imagine the two often go hand in hand." "Indeed." Victoria gestured to the seating area. "Please sit. I'm curious to learn more about the woman who has so thoroughly captivated my son." As they settled into conversation, Cassandra deployed every weapon in her considerable arsenal. She spoke knowledgeably about art and architecture, shared amusing anecdotes from her work with celebrity clients, and demonstrated just enough vulnerability to seem human while maintaining an aura of success. Victoria listened with the patience of a spider waiting for the fly to fully enter her web. "Tell me, Miss Vale," Victoria said during a lull in conversation, "what are your intentions regarding Jonathan?" The direct question caught Cassandra off guard, but she recovered smoothly. "I love him, Mrs. Blackwood. I know the circumstances of our meeting weren't ideal, but sometimes life presents us with unexpected opportunities for happiness." "Happiness," Victoria savored the word like vintage wine. "And you believe you can provide that for my son?" "I believe we can provide it for each other. Jonathan deserves someone who appreciates his ambition, his drive, his vision for the future. Someone who can match his energy and support his dreams." And Helena couldn't do that? The question hung in the air like a blade. Cassandra felt Jonathan, tense beside her, but she pressed forward. This was her moment to stake her claim. "Helena is a remarkable woman in her own right," Cassandra said carefully, "but she and Jonathan had grown apart. Sometimes relationships run their course and holding on only causes more pain for everyone involved." Victoria nodded slowly. "How pragmatic of you. And what of the future? Children, perhaps?" "Jonathan and I haven't discussed specifics, but I've always wanted a family. I think we could give children a wonderful life, stability, opportunity, love." "The Blackwood name comes with certain responsibilities, Miss Vale. Charity obligations, social expectations, business considerations. Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny?" "I thrive under pressure, Mrs. Blackwood. It's how diamonds are formed." For the first time that evening, Victoria smiled. It was not entirely pleasant. "How apt," she murmured. "Diamonds indeed." As dinner was announced, Cassandra felt a surge of triumph. She'd handled the interrogation perfectly, projecting exactly the right balance of respect and confidence. Victoria Blackwood was clearly impressed, and Jonathan looked relieved. She had no way of knowing that in a study upstairs, legal documents were being prepared that would turn her victory into the most devastating defeat of her life. The new queen was about to learn that some thrones come with very sharp edges. Part 3. The Matriarch's Game. Victoria Blackwood sat in her private study, the same room where she'd built an empire from the ashes of grief 30 years ago. The walls were lined with photographs documenting her rise from grieving widow to real estate mogul, groundbreaking ceremonies, board meetings, charity galas. But tonight, her attention focused on a single manila folder lying closed on her mahogany desk. The folder contained documents that would reshape the Blackwood legacy forever. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in, Marcus." Marcus Chen, her attorney and oldest friend, entered carrying a leather briefcase. At 70, he moved, with the careful precision of a man who'd spent decades navigating legal minefields for the wealthy and powerful. He'd been Victoria's confidant through every major decision since her husband's death. "The papers are ready," he said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "Are you certain about this, Victoria? Once you sign these documents, there's no going back." Victoria opened the folder, revealing a deed transfer, several legal agreements, and a thick document bound in blue covers. Her eyes scanned the familiar text one final time. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Marcus. My son has shown his true character, and it's found wanting. He made a mistake. He made a choice." Victoria's voice carried the steel that had intimidated boardrooms full of men twice her size. Jonathan chose to betray a woman who loved him, who built a life with him, who sacrificed her own ambitions to support his dreams. He chose to replace substance with spectacle, character with cleavage. Marcus winced at her bluntness, but Victoria continued. "Helena Blackwood, and yes, she will always be a Blackwood in my eyes, has spent 12 years proving herself worthy of this family. She's designed affordable housing projects that bear our name with pride. She's raised millions for children's charities. She's conducted herself with grace and dignity in every social situation. And how does my son repay her? By sneaking around with a gold-digging opportunist who sees dollar signs instead of love. Cassandra Vale does seem rather calculating." Victoria's laugh held no warmth. "Calculating? Marcus, that woman practically licked her lips when she saw the chandelier in the foyer. She spent the entire evening cataloging assets like she was already planning the estate sale. She stood and walked to the window overlooking the estate gardens, where Helena had once planned elaborate charity events. The memory of Helena's genuine laughter, her excitement over a rare orchid blooming or a child taking their first steps in a playground she'd designed, contrasted sharply with Cassandra's practiced charm. Jonathan thinks he can simply trade wives. "Like he trades properties," Victoria continued. "He believes his inheritance is guaranteed, that family loyalty is unconditional. It's time he learned otherwise." Jonathan Blackwood adjusted his tie for the third time as he waited in the mansion's grand foyer. The familiar scent of his childhood, leather, wood polish, and his mother's signature white tea perfume should have been comforting. Instead, it felt suffocating. Something was wrong. His mother's smile during cocktails had been too sharp, her questions too pointed, her eyes too calculating. Victoria descended the main staircase with regal precision, wearing a black dress that seemed more appropriate for a funeral than a family dinner. Behind her came Marcus Chen, which struck Jonathan as odd. Marcus usually handled legal business during office hours, not family gatherings. "Mother, I wasn't expecting Marcus tonight." "I thought we might need a witness," Victoria replied cryptically. "Shall we proceed to the dining room?" The formal dining room had been set for 4, which confused Jonathan further. The table gleamed under the crystal chandelier, set with the Blackwood family china, pieces that had witnessed generations of celebrations and confrontations. Cassandra took her seat with obvious delight, her eyes drinking in every detail of luxury surrounding her. "This is absolutely stunning, Mrs. Blackwood," Cassandra gushed. "The craftsmanship of this table must be extraordinary. Is it original? To the house?" "It belonged to my grandmother," Victoria replied curtly. "She used to say that family meals were sacred, moments when truth should prevail over pretense." Jonathan felt his unease deepen. His mother's words carried undercurrents he couldn't interpret, like a familiar song played in a minor key. As the first course was served, a delicate lobster bisque, Victoria turned to Cassandra with predatory focus. "Tell me, Miss Vale, what attracts you most about my son?" Cassandra's laugh tinkled like expensive crystal. "Jonathan is a remarkable man. His vision, his success, his position in society—" "His position?" Victoria's eyebrow arched dangerously. Well, yes. The Blackwood name opens doors, doesn't it? Jonathan has such influence, such connections. Together we could build something magnificent. Build? Victoria set down her spoon with deliberate precision. And what exactly would you contribute to this construction project? Jonathan intervened quickly. Mother, Cassandra has been incredibly supportive. I wasn't addressing you, Jonathan. Victoria's voice could have frozen flame. I asked Miss Vale what she brings to the table besides youth and enthusiasm. Cassandra's smile faltered slightly, but she rallied. I bring fresh perspective, Mrs. Blackwood, new energy. Jonathan deserves someone who appreciates his ambition, who can match his lifestyle. His lifestyle. Victoria savored the words like poison. And what of his character, his integrity, his capacity for loyalty? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jonathan felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill. Of course those matter too, Cassandra stammered. Do they? Because from where I sit, Miss Vale, you've chosen to involve yourself with a married man. You've participated in the destruction of a 12-year marriage. You've helped my son betray a woman who loved him unconditionally. Tell me, what does that suggest about your character? Cassandra's composure cracked completely. Mrs. Blackwood, that's not fair. Jonathan and Helena had problems long before I came along. I didn't break up their marriage, it was already broken. Broken? Victoria's voice rose slightly. By whom? By the wife who worked 18-hour days to support her husband's ambitions? By the woman who gave up her own career opportunities to be the perfect corporate wife? By the person who never complained when Jonathan missed anniversaries for business, deals or canceled vacations for board meetings? Jonathan found his voice. Mother, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Jonathan. I understand that you threw away the best thing that ever happened to you for a temporary thrill. I understand that you prioritized lust over love, conquest over commitment. Victoria stood, her presence suddenly filling the room like a gathering storm. But most importantly, I understand that you've shown your true character, and it's been found catastrophically wanting. She walked to the sideboard where Marcus waited with the manila folder. Jonathan's blood turned to ice water as he recognized the legal document format. What is that? Jonathan's voice cracked like a teenager's. This, Victoria said, placing the folder on the table, is your education in consequences. She opened the folder, revealing documents that made Jonathan's world tilt sideways. Property deeds, trust modifications, legal transfers, all bearing his mother's signature. As of today, this mansion, the Blackwood family seat for over a century, no longer belongs to our family trust. It belongs to someone who will appreciate its true value. Cassandra leaned forward, her eyes bright with confusion and growing alarm. What do you mean? Who? The dining room doors opened with perfect timing. Helena Blackwood entered, still wearing her work clothes, simple black pants, and a cream sweater. She looked tired, as doctors often did after saving lives, but her posture remained dignified. She carried herself with the quiet strength that had first attracted Jonathan 15 years ago. I'm sorry I'm late, Helena said calmly. I had an emergency surgery that ran longer than expected. Jonathan's chair scraped against the floor as he shot to his feet. What is she doing here? Victoria smiled for the first time all evening, her expression warm as she looked at Helena. She's here because this concerns her directly. Helena approached the table, her eyes taking in the shocked faces around it. She stopped beside Victoria's chair, the two women presenting a united front that excluded everyone else in the room. Helena, Victoria said, sliding the deed across the table, this house is yours. The silence that followed was absolute. Cassandra's face went through a rainbow of emotions, confusion, disbelief, fury, and finally, naked greed, denied. Jonathan looked as if he'd been physically struck. You can't do this. he whispered. I can and I have, Victoria replied. The house was part of my family's inheritance, held in my name alone. I've chosen to give it to someone who understands. That legacy is about more than ownership. It's about responsibility. Helena stared at the deed, her hands trembling slightly as she picked it up. Victoria, I can't accept this. It's too much. You can and you will. You've earned it, my dear. 12 years of perfect loyalty, of building up instead of tearing down, of representing this family with grace and dignity. This house has never had a worthier owner, Cassandra finally exploded. This is insane! Jonathan, do something! She can't just give away your inheritance to your ex-wife. Watch me, Victoria said coldly. Jonathan felt his world crumbling around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. The mansion, his birthright, his symbol of power and success, gone. Given to the woman he'd betrayed, the wife he'd traded for, a younger model. Why? He asked, his voice breaking. Why are you destroying our family? Victoria's expression softened just slightly, revealing the wounded mother beneath the iron matriarch. I'm not destroying our family, Jonathan. I'm trying to save what's left of it. You destroyed our family the moment you chose betrayal over honor. She turned to Helena, her voice gentle. The house comes with no strings attached, my dear. You can live in it, sell it, or turn it into a hospital if you choose. It's yours completely. As Helena clutched the deed to her chest, tears finally streaming down her face, Victoria delivered her final blow. Oh, and Jonathan? Miss Vale? Your presence is no longer required at this table, or in this house. You have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings. The dinner of reckoning was complete. The queen had fallen, the prince had been dethroned, and the discarded princess had inherited the kingdom. Sometimes justice was served cold. Tonight, it was absolutely freezing. Part 5. The Last Laugh. 6 months after the dinner that changed everything, Helena Blackwood stood in the mansion's newly renovated wing, watching children's laughter echo through halls that had once whispered only of business deals and social obligations. The Blackwood Children's Medical Foundation occupied the entire East Wing now, providing respite care for families dealing with pediatric cancer. The transformation had been her masterstroke, not selling the mansion for profit, not living in it as a monument to her victory, but converting it into something that honored both the past and the future. Victoria had been right about one thing. Helena understood legacy in ways that money alone could never teach. Dr. Blackwood? A small voice interrupted her thoughts. 7-year-old Jamie Martinez, one of their current patients, tugged at her white coat. Can you come see the art room? We painted pictures of our families. Helena's heart clenched with familiar joy. Of course, sweetheart. Lead the way. The art therapy room had been Jonathan's former home office, a space where he'd once made deals that affected thousands of lives without ever meeting the people involved. Now, finger paintings and clay sculptures lined the walls, created by small, hands fighting battles too big for their years. This is my family, Jamie said proudly, pointing to a crayon drawing featuring stick figures holding hands around a house. That's Mama, Papa, my sister Rosa, and you. Me? Helena knelt beside. The boy, her voice catching slightly. You take care of sick kids like me. That makes you family.